It is absolute pleasure to introduce Greg. He's such a fantastic storyteller and now best-selling author of The Infinite Giving. Over to you, Greg. Thank you very much. Can't wait to hear this.
Thank you very much. Okay, so just give me a clue. Can you see the big kind of white screen, right? You can't see all my notes and all the jokes that are coming up, yeah? Excellent. Thank you very much for having me here. I was absolutely honoured when Jan asked me to speak. I came up to you guys about 18 months ago in winter of 2019, and just such a phenomenal event. I had a photographer stalk me for the whole event. I thought it was because I was young and good looking. It turned out that you like to make memes of your guest speakers and abuse them on Facebook for months to come. So it was a real pleasure. And the thing is, you know, I want to motivate and inspire you today, but it would be totally remiss of me to ignore the elephant in the room. And, you know, what is the elephant in the room? Well, the elephant in the room is COVID. And let's just be totally candid about it. COVID absolutely sucks, right? COVID sucks. At no point did we want to be doing this on Zoom. We wanted to be together, and I wanted to come up and see you guys again, have a good cup of coffee with you and a good laugh. And I don't think any of us in our 5-year plan had blending childhood ice lollies with vodka on a Wednesday afternoon or post-apocalyptic haircuts listed as our life goals from 2015 in our 5-year plan. But I tell you what doesn't suck. What absolutely doesn't suck is the way that BNI has dealt with COVID. In fact, scrub that. It's the way that Mike Holman and Louise, no, let's scrub that. It's the way that I tell you what, it's the way that you have dealt with COVID. You see, I look around BNI and I have never been so sure that I am among the right people. The way that you guys have pulled together and supported one another, when, let's be candid, we've had no choice. We either get on with it or we curl up into a ball and we block out the world. And what you guys have done is truly, truly amazing. And I want to show you now how you can leave a legacy in your local communities and with your local business. And there's a few things I want you to think about. Now, I don't know if you've got pens and papers or if you've got access to notes, but there's a few things I want you to write down that I want you to do going past this. So I want you to decide today, or when you do a bit of follow-up tomorrow from this event, you've got a real opportunity now. There's a load of people out there that have changed their business. They've pivoted their offering. You've got people on like Matt who focus on online retail. What's the one thing that you would like to learn over the coming months? What do you want to learn and what do you want to put in play in your business? And here's one that we never ever target ourselves on. What's the one thing you would like to teach to others? You see, you've had to do stuff to survive. We all have. If your business looks the same today, exactly the same today as it did 6 months ago, then I hate to say this, you're probably not going to be here in 6 months' time because we've all had to change. And Ivan said something brilliant when he did one of my regional events. He said, hey, I hate change. I absolutely hate it. I hate it more than the other guy. But when the choice is you either change or you fail, I'll change all day long. So you've had to change. And yes, it's great to learn, but it's a privilege to teach. And only when we've got both sides of that circle do we get a complete offering to our business communities. So what's the one thing that you would like to teach to others? It could be something in your business, it could be something in your BNI membership, and offer that mentoring. Because that's what we need now. We need that business support. So I want you to write down those two things and really work over the next few months to be able to learn and fill the gaps that you've got in your skill set and be able to teach to help others fill their gaps. The great thing is, however, is that everyone's been going through it. We're all in the same boat. And I love telling stories. Louise alluded to it in my introduction. And I've made it a real passion of mine to research stories. And I did that because I told a story once, which I thought was true. And someone came up to me after and they said, actually, that's not correct. And I felt so bad for influencing so many with a really amazing story that I thought was true, that I go out of my way now to research for stories that I tell. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play two sides of a text conversation from a story that I've researched recently. So you are going to have to do a bit of reading. I'm sorry. I know it's a Tuesday night and that's the last thing we want to do, but you are going to have to do a bit of reading. But just have a look at this pretty standard text conversation that's going on between this young couple. So a pretty standard conversation, right? It's a big topic of conversation on social media now. Do face masks actually work? And, you know, I don't want to brag, but I've got over 2,000 friends on Facebook and I've met at least 10 of them face to face, because isn't that how social media works? But out of all my inspirational and motivational posts that I put up, this is the one that got the most shares and the most engagement in 2020. I'll just let this sit here for a moment whilst you read that. So face masks are a big thing, and they are the kind of hot topic of conversation. And I love a good face mask. And I love the fact that there are different variations of face masks out there. Did you know that there was a vegan face mask? Did anyone know that? Did anyone know that there was a vegan face mask out there? Did you know that there was a face mask for chocolate lovers? There's definitely a chocolate lover's face mask. There's even a face mask out there for people who don't really understand how face masks work. So there are all these different types of face masks. But what I really love, I love the fact that you can get a face mask that makes you look like your hero. So you can get this face mask, you can wear it, it makes you look like your hero. So I bought one which was modeled on my hero. Weirdly, the side effect is when I wear my face mask of my hero, small children and women tend to stay away. So it's a really effective medium to use. The other, what? No? I think that's a great look. No one else? Mike, you've never looked so attractive in all your life. But that's the standard thing. We all have this stuff in common, and there's other stuff that we have in common as well. And I'm going to play the second half of that text message conversation for you, so you can see that we're all exactly in the same boat. So a very standard topic of conversation there. So worried about the Rona hitting the base. So a young sergeant in the US military, and if he did come down, he doubting the medical facilities on the base. Now, I don't think any of us have ever questioned the commitment and dedication that our frontline workers have put in over the last few months. However, you know, what would we do if we came down with it? So we really do, we have all of these concerns, and it was just really encouraging for me to see that that was going on the other side of the world, and these two young lovers had exactly the same concerns that that we all had here the other side of the pond. The really interesting thing about that, though, was it didn't happen over text message. It happened over a series of letters and correspondence in the early 1900s. You see, that was correspondence between Hildreth Heney and Sergeant Cliver Hadley. And it happened around the time of the Spanish flu 100 years ago. And they had the same concerns and the same fears that we had right now. And interestingly, if you pick up a newspaper from today, you'll read, do face masks work? Is the government telling us everything? And has uncontrolled migration had an impact on the spread of the pandemic? And if you're able to go to the archives and pick up a newspaper from 100 years ago when the Spanish flu outbreak was in full effect, the three main topics of conversations were, do face masks work? And yes, they had to wear them then. Is the government giving us all the information? Are they telling us the truth? And has uncontrolled migration had an effect on the spread of the pandemic? You see, the thing is, we've been here before. We've been here before. And actually, we keep bounding around this term of being in unprecedented times. But it's far from that. We are actually in precedented times. When we look at the lessons of the past, we can predict what is going to happen next. You see, there are no new mistakes. There are new people making old mistakes, and there are old people making old mistakes. And unless we learn from the mistakes of the past, we are doomed to repeat them. So what lessons can we learn from the past? So number one, whoever named our pandemic, coronavirus or COVID-19, they're the worst marketeers ever, because previous pandemics had brilliant names. The Black Death. I mean, it sounds like a alternate rock group from Wolverhampton, doesn't it? But the Black Death, which ran from 1348 to 1350, when we look at when that was over, farm wages increased by 116%. And real wages in terms of skilled labour increased by 42%. The Spanish flu, 1918 to 1919 in the UK. Building labourers' wages increased by 34.2%. Now, before you accountants and economists in the room, and we try to keep you out of these fun meetings, we try to distract you with an abacus or a calculator every now and then, but I know that some of you sneak in. You'll be saying, well, Greg, that's hyperinflation. That's because there was a lack of people to fill those professions. So supply and demand increased wages, and then it was caught up in a cycle of inflation. That's called hyperinflation. And I'll give you that for those first two. That could be put down to hyperinflation, but that one couldn't. House prices increased by 20% following the regression of the Spanish flu in the UK. And when we look at the Spanish flu in America, we look at cities such as Chicago, New York, LA, and San Francisco. And there were many others as well, many other centers of industry that all saw significantly higher economic regrowth following the pandemic compared to their rural cousins. Now, let me just reiterate. Chicago, New York, LA, San Francisco, and others all saw significantly higher bounce back following the pandemic. Now, why would that be, do we think? Well, you see, they were really quick to embrace the new technologies. And back in the early 1900s, the new technologies were things like electricity, which I still think there are some members in my region that haven't embraced that. But anyway, the electricity was one. Conveyor belt manufacturing. So we've seen those wonderful images of the Model T Ford being built, where the cars are moving along a conveyor belt, and the workers are staying stationary in their workstations, and it increased output tenfold. But what we didn't realize, or what I didn't realize, was that that was being repeated across many industries from all over America. So the textile, the manufacturing, even the food production industry. You see, these new technologies were embraced wholeheartedly. And because of the embracing of those technologies, the regrowth was absolutely vast. And here's my question to you. What technologies have you embraced recently? Well, I'm not in a room with you right now. I'm sat in my office in Bromley, staring at some kind of ring light, which is now dazzling me. So we've certainly embraced technology as BNI. We can reach communities now that we were unable to do so because of geographical restrictions and travel time. I'm able to sit down and do 6 or 7 really effective one-to-ones in a day because we strip out waiting for coffee and driving in between venues. So as BNI, I can totally endorse how we've embraced new technologies, and there will be chapters that start and continue purely online. And my question is to you, what have you embraced? What new technologies have you got in play in your business? And it could be as simple as just doing a basic fact find over Zoom rather than meeting people face to face. I've got interior designers and builders and bespoke carpenters that do walkarounds at people's homes using branded tape measures that they've sent the client in advance rather than having to go to site. I've got financial advisors and will writers and mortgage brokers that use automated appointment setting software so that people can pick the times that they want and you absolutely maximize the efficiency of your diary. What other technologies have we not even discovered yet that in 6 months' time we'll use every single day? You see, your business will come out leaner and stronger than any of your competition because you're in an environment where you're better supported. And Mike alluded to it earlier, some of your one-to-ones have gone through the roof across your regions. Did I hear that right? 1,500 additional one-to-ones. Now, we know that one-to-ones are the absolute cornerstone of building relationships. You see, if you imagine your chapter meeting as a shop front for your business, or the one-to-ones are where you actually do the selling. That's where you do the education and the training and the selling of your introducers. So the fact that you've locked into that using this technology shows that your businesses will be stronger when you come out. And when I look across BNI, your figures are actually better than the whole of BNI because we've seen a 75% increase between April and July this year. I think yours was up past 85%. So congratulations. And look, yes, it is still down. There are still some sectors, and I'm not here saying that people aren't struggling, because they absolutely are. But if they're struggling in BNI, it means they're in the right environment to pivot and to push their business in a different direction so that when they can get back to normality, they have those right foundations in place. And you've seen an 85% return to thank you to the business. And overall, we've seen a 75% increase month on month between April and July. Here's one that's really close to my heart. We've lost 16 fewer members year on year. Our members are renewing. You are renewing. I spoke to a brilliant utilities warehouse broker in one of the breakout rooms, Mark, who was coming up to the end of his first year's membership. And I said, oh, are you going to renew then? And he instantly, like a reflex, went, yeah, I'm going to renew. And then he went, oh, no, I don't need to because I joined for 2 years anyway. So he was so confident that he was in the right environment that he automatically said, yes, it's a shame that I didn't have Mike's credit card machine there and then, because we could have tapped him up for another year, couldn't we? But that's the thing. Members are staying for longer because they know that they need to be part of the business community. And we are starting more new business communities than we ever have before. We've had the best August in BNI UK and Ireland in terms of new chapters that we've had for 24 years. And if any of you know the history of BNI, basically in the UK and Ireland, that's ever. We've had the best August ever in terms of new chapters beginning. Now, there are areas in your region that have never had BNI chapters, and that's because of travel or geography, or even just because there hasn't been a suitable venue. You know people in there who are struggling. You know people in there that you care about that need BNI, just like you need BNI. And I said it in one of my breakout rooms, I say it again. My message to you is invite people that you care about to meet people that you care about right now, because that's what we're doing. And I'm going to speak on behalf of Mike and Louise and all of your wonderful direct consultant teams. We don't care if they join. We just want them to meet us. We want to meet them. We want them to go away with a wonderful experience of what you guys are doing here in supporting one another. And if we can help them in one small way, then we've done our job. We know as a side effect, just like you lovely people have, some of them will get involved. But inviting people that we care about to meet people that we care about right now, that's what's really important. So you've done amazingly well, amazingly well. I mean, to get 90 plus people on an event on a Tuesday night, sitting in front of a laptop like you've done for the last 6 months, knowing that you're going to have to do it for a few months more is incredible. But how do we become legends? How do we become those people that in a year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years time, they mention our name saying, do you remember what Ben did for me? Do you remember what Jason did for me? Do you remember what Kevin did for me? How do we become legends? Well, I did a bit of research for this. I mentioned it earlier, and I came across what I want my legacy to be. So I already know what I want my legacy to be. I want to know what legacy I want to leave. I want to know what I want people to say about me when I'm no longer here. And the interesting thing about this was it's another lockdown story. It's not based in, I'll tell you now, it's not based in the Spanish, around the Spanish flu. It's actually based in the 1940s. There was a secondary outbreak. And a lot of military bases went on to lockdown. And I found this letter between a young test pilot and his sweetheart. And I've had to rewrite it because the handwriting was so bad. There's no way you'd be able to read it. So I'm going to flash it up on screen and I'm going to read it to you. And this is what I want my legacy to be. So, my dearest Suzanne, I hope this letter finds you well. I miss you and the children dearly and hope you are keeping safe. I can finally confirm that my flight orders have come through. I really shouldn't be telling you this as correspondence may be checked, but I will be testing a new 2-seat version of the Spitfire. It will revolutionize the war effort as we can train new pilots in safer skies without the risk of enemy engagement. Unfortunately, I've been showing signs of the recent virus and have been placed into quarantine until my flight time for safety reasons. It does mean that I will miss my birthday celebrations, but I've heard that my regional commander is arranging a ride-by so I can in some way enjoy the festivities. Please stay safe, please stay well. Yours forever, Christopher. And I read that and my heart absolutely leapt with joy. I want to be that regional commander. You know, you've got this young guy who's going out there and essentially doing things for others. He's written this beautiful letter to his sweetheart saying how much he misses her and the kids and how gutted he is that he's going to miss his birthday celebrations. And his regional commander has gone above and beyond to make him feel like part of the community and arranging this ride-by. And I had no idea what a ride-by was, so I did some more digging. And the great thing is Biggin Hill Airport, where this is based, is in my region, and the archives are there. And I was able to find some footage of this ride-by. So I'm going to play this for you now. Again. Yeah, lovely.
Frank Trotter always comes back.
Thank you guys. Bless. My little love socket.
Right, Chris? Fantastic.
Okay, so I told a little porky again. That wasn't a young test pilot from the 1940s. That was Chris Williams. Chris Williams is a long-term member in my region. He's a director consultant, and he's just taken up the role as area director consultant for my active chapters. And it was Chris's 60th birthday, and his beautiful wife, Sue, had arranged, as you would imagine, a fantastic party with wonderful food and drink and people flying in from all over the world. And then lockdown hit. So I wanted to do something to let Chris know how appreciated he is. He's our highest referral giver in our region. He's a millionaire giver. He's been a DC for 8 years now, and he's one of the best known people on the BNI circuit. He's absolutely outstanding. There were members that drove an hour to drive past his house for 2 minutes. They baked cakes, they bought gifts, they had balloons. You even saw Jeff at the end there, who had spray painted a tarpaulin and stuck it to the side of his van. That's the legacy that I want to leave. Forget the business, forget the learning and all the other stuff that naturally comes with BNI. But when people need us, we rally around and we support them. And what was amazing when I put this together was that was one of 100 stories I could have told. I could have told you the story of the window cleaner who heard that one of his members in the events industry was struggling, put his own hand in his own pocket, pushed a trolley around Tesco's, filled it up with everything that she needed for the next month, and delivered it by knocking on her door and walking away. With no expectation of thanks or recognition. He did it because it was the right thing to do. I could tell you about the members who secretly schooled other people how to use Zoom because they didn't want to admit that they were scared of technology. And rather than calling them out or running policy or whatever else is expected to do in guidelines and procedures, they put an arm around these people and they worked for hours until they were comfortable and could rejoin the community that they absolutely loved. My legacy, I want to be, when the chips are down, when people are feeling low, the first people to pick them up are BNI members. And that's why I adore my region. And that's why I adore your region. Because you're my kind of people. You're the kind of people that rally around and look after one another. And I can't thank you enough for that. And you might be sat there thinking, well, that's not my legacy right now, Greg. I've got an idea of what my legacy should be. And we're just not there yet. And I want to leave you with one last story before I go. I seem to have lost 2 slides. No, there we go. Gone back, hang on. So I want to leave you with one last story before I go. And it's going to be a bit of visualization. So I want to take you on a journey. So I want you to imagine 19th century Paris, so the late 1800s. You can smell fresh coffee in the air. There's someone playing the accordion. If you want to put in other French stereotypes, like someone in a stripy top and a beret pushing a bike with onions around their neck, feel free to do so. Just whatever you want to load in there, load it in there. But sat at a table enjoying a morning coffee is a 19th century millionaire. Now, we're talking a millionaire in the late 1800s, so would be an absolute billionaire by any measure today. And the way that this person kept abreast with local kind of news and international news was to read the obituary section every day in the newspaper. You see, it was a way that he could see how his contemporaries were regarded. And as he was flicking through the obituary section, his eyes were drawn to a headline. And they were drawn to a headline which was, Le Marchand de Mort est mort. The merchant of death is dead. And what was worse about that headline was the name that followed it was his. He was reading his own obituary. And he went white and he had to put his newspaper down. You see, this was an incredibly successful industrialist. And he had brought a product onto the market which had saved thousands of lives in the industry of the town that he grew up. You see, he grew up in a small town in Austria. And throughout his childhood and his adolescence, the industry of his town was mining. And there were often mine collapses and landslides and rock slides. And they killed a lot of his family and a lot of his friends. So he dedicated his life to science, and his branch of science was chemistry. And he came up with this invention that would allow you to remove rock from a mine or a rock face without anyone ever being close to it. And then when it was safe, you could go in and you could take the rock and you could take the minerals out. So in his mind, he had done the world a service with his invention. Unfortunately, what had happened is what often happens with good intent. The military had got a hold of it, and what had saved thousands of lives in the mining industry had killed billions on the battlefield. You see, his invention was TNT. It was dynamite. And it was invented with all good intentions, but had been misused. Now, what he worked out was this obituary wasn't his. It was actually meant for his brother that had gone into the oil industry and he knew had passed away recently. And he had a choice. Did he go and cry himself to sleep on his millions upon millions of francs? Or did he do something about his legacy? And he made a choice right there to change how the world perceived him. So he spent the next decade bringing together the most eminent experts in various fields from around the world, in physics and literature and chemistry. He put a huge amount of his personal fortune in a charitable trust that is still growing to this day, with the one direction: recognize the very best that humanity has to offer and encourage the future development of the human race. So when I say the name Alfred Nobel, you don't think of Le Marchand de Mort. You think of the Nobel Prizes, the ones that have gone on to recognize those who have developed peace in the world and recognized every year for the very best that we have to offer. You see, it doesn't matter where you are now. It doesn't matter what your legacy is today. You can change how people think of you, and you can write your own legacy. I'm just going to end tonight by saying thank you for all you've done. You probably don't realize, but there are people that are still here. And I'm not talking about BNI, I'm talking about physically here today because of what you've done. I'm going to thank you for all you continue to do. You are the heroes of these regions. That's why you're on this call tonight. And I'm going to thank you for all you will do in the coming weeks and months, because to me, you are legends. And yes, even Mike. Thank you very much.
Let's unmute ourselves, please. A absolutely huge whoop for Greg. Come on.
Thanks, Greg. Well done, Greg.
Thank you.
Awesome, well, Greg.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Please show your love in the chat as well. Tell us what you really think. We do have a few for maybe, Greg, if you're open to taking a couple of questions, if you wouldn't mind that.
Yeah, of course.
Please, I know we've got a couple of people who've messaged me with some questions, so unmute yourself if you wouldn't mind. Jan, I know you messaged me maybe with a question that was relating to kind of BNI and how Greg's regions work, but honestly, awesome. Jan, go on, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Gets better every time I see that. Thanks, pal. Yeah,
well, it's only the second time you've seen it. Does that mean it was awful the first time?
Third. I can't stop watching it, mate. No, obviously a lot of people have suffered. A lot of people have reacted differently, and we now know that nothing's going to change anytime soon. What would be your biggest tip for members who are struggling to be active within their chapters right now?
Do you know what? I think I said it in one of the breakout rooms. None of us want to be here. None of us want to be on Zoom. I'd much rather be in a room with most of you. I mean, Luke gets a little handsy when you're in a room with him, but the majority of you I'd like to be in a room with. However, if my choice is being on Zoom with you guys or not being with you at all, I'll pick being on Zoom all day long. Now, it's like Ivan said, if the choice is between change and failure, then I'm going to change all day long. And I think it's just a realization. I could have quite easily told a load of upbeat stories there, some really bad dad jokes, and not recognize the situation that we're in. But Mike, Louise, Liam, they've done a brilliant job today by just saying, look, guys, we are where we are, and there is nothing that we can do about it. None of us write policy, none of us write what tiers we fall in or what geography we're in. We just have to get on with that. However, let's recognize that we would much rather be in BNI and in our chapters and with the members that we know, we like, we trust, and let's be candid, that we love right now, than out there on our own trying to deal with this without this support. Now, I haven't been to a region that's got a chief happiness officer before. You don't really, I don't think you realize how lucky you guys are to be in a region that actually cares, because there are regions around the UK and Ireland, there are regions around the world that don't. And I promise you, you're in a region that cares. So all I would say to the members, and not in an arrogant or nonchalant way, just saying, look, I get where you're coming from. I know how you feel. I want to be face to face. I want to smell coffee. I want to shake hands. But given the choice of not being in BNI right now and being in BNI, I'm picking BNI all day long.
Awesome work. Absolutely brilliant answer. Has anybody else got a question for Greg? I know we've got 10 minutes or so please pitch up. Amal.
Yeah, great session, Greg. That's the second time that I've heard it, and it just gets better and better. Very powerful. Yeah, so thank you very much. One question for you. In your experience of giving this talk and speaking to many members, across the UK, going forward for the rest of 2020 and going into 2021, what would you say is the characteristic or quality that members need to exhibit over the sort of next 12 to 15 months in order to ensure success for themselves and for fellow members?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. So for me, it's so there's actually two. So there is positivity, and I'm not talking about mindless positivity where we kind of walk around in a cloud and a bubble, but I do think smiling, I do think asking people, are they okay? I do think genuinely being concerned and being upbeat about where we are and the opportunities we've got is really important. But I think for the majority of BNI members, you've got a chance to position yourself in the market right now so that when normality does return, you are in line for the very, very best that the business world has to offer. So right now, people are more likely to take one-to-one requests. They're more likely to take phone calls and Zoom meetings if you can get in front of them. So if you think you're able to use your time better by utilizing BNI Online and Zoom, well, your very best referral, the person that would change your business, is also using their time better. So if you lay the groundwork now, if you help your members understand how to introduce you and the people that you want to be introduced to, and when you get the chance to have that introduction, to lay the groundwork so that you are in the position for people to use you when we return to normality, you will blast your competition away. So I would say preparation is definitely the best quality that I can recommend right now.
Brilliant, brilliant answer. Has anybody else got a question for Greg? Blake, are you thumbing up there? Nigel, sorry, I saw your finger there. Sorry.
All right, thank you, Greg, for that. Very interesting, very inspirational. Everyone that's here, I think, is, we can safely say, somebody that's engaged with the BNI thing at the moment. What tips would you give to us to help people that possibly aren't embracing the technology, like you said, that aren't getting to grips with the Zoom and that are just finding it really tough? How would you help them embrace what everyone here seems to have done?
So I would find out who they're closest to in the chapter, who your allies are. So if you're looking, we had a 20-year member who just wouldn't go on to Zoom, and all the excuses in the world came out. I'm too busy. I'm back on the tools. I'm this. But then as time went on, you know, we respected their situation, and then as time went on, it became perfectly clear that it was more than that. So we found someone who was engaged and was part of the chapter, and we instructed them to ask one question. And that question, you may want to write this one down. That question was, are you okay? And it's amazing how powerful that question is. Because what came out was the fact that this guy, even in his business, doesn't have a computer. Didn't even know where to start. And because he was a 20-year member, once again, a millionaire giver in his own chapter, that his secretary and his VA used to do all of his BNI admin for him. He was worried that he was going to damage his reputation by looking silly in front of his other members. So we were able to help him. We were able to get him set up with a reconditioned laptop and get him back online. But that never would have happened unless someone that he respected, someone that he trusted, just reached out and said, are you okay? And you might want to say to people, are you okay? We miss you. You're a big part of a group. We miss not seeing you. You know, there are new members in the room who haven't even met you yet. Don't do it for you, do it for them. Come back online. We really miss you. Any one of those two things to get them back involved. Because once they're on here, once they realize that, yeah, okay, it's not as good as face-to-face, but it's about 99%. I tell you what, there are some gains and there are some losses. So no full English breakfast. That's a loss for some of us, certainly a gain for me. Not speaking to the member with bad coffee breath, that's a definite gain all the way around, isn't it? So there are some wonderful gains that we have by meeting online. It's about 99%. It's as close as we're ever going to get until we get that kind of holographic technology that you see on Star Wars. But that's what I would say, Nigel. I would reach out to them and just ask them, are you okay? And tell them that we miss them, because we do. And if you don't miss them, don't call them.
Brilliant. Blake, I know you had your hand up. Please take it away.
The virus has hit people quite hard, a lot of people quite hard. It's been quite challenging. A lot of people I've seen do really well out of it have hit back twice as hard with a positive attitude. My question to you is, aside from the virus, in your life, what has been your biggest challenge and how have you overcome?
Getting personal. That's really good. Well, I mean, I'll be really candid. So I always try to look for the personal, for the positive in everything. But I separated from my wife in September of last year. So my lockdown experience has been, and it's been BNI members, it's been the kindness of BNI members that have seen me through that. So my lockdown experience has been living like a teenager in someone else's spare bedroom, whilst my family have been 60 miles away. So my biggest challenge, what kind of brought me down a little bit, was not seeing my two daughters, who I absolutely adore, day in, day out. However, the positive side of that was that they got used to being a family unit of three. They got used to spending time with their mum and themselves as sisters. And it was actually a really amazing situation for them to find themselves, because rather than it feeling like they were a broken family, they re-solidified that family unit very, very quickly. So yes, I had some hardships, but my kids are better because of it. And I made sure, using technology, that I saw my kids every single day. Using Zoom, I was able to see my kids every single day. And even in a time where I had to self-isolate, I had to isolate it ended up being 3 weeks. I was still able to go down and speak to my girls through the downstairs window. And it's amazing just what hearing the laughter of your kids actually does for you. So yeah, my biggest challenge has been picking the wrong time to separate from your wife. I mean, Jesus Christ. Although I've become an amazing Fortnite player on Xbox because I've had nothing else to do. So it's been my biggest challenge. But even in that challenge, I recognize that in the most challenging situation, there is always a positive to take out of it. And that positive is that my kids are in a better mental state now than they would have been if they hadn't have spent that intense lockdown time as a family unit of three. And I made sure that they knew that I was there day in, day out for them as well.
Brilliantly honest. Thanks, Greg. We have one last question. And I can't see everyone on the screen, so you may have to shout up. One last one. I can't see anybody on the screen. Who's putting their hand up? No. Is that about it? Mike, have you got anything to add just at this last question?
I don't think last question. We're literally on time, Liam, so I think I'll let you get it wrapped up. But I mean, I know you're going to sort of say the farewells, Liam, but I just want to personally say, Greg, thank you, buddy. Love everything you do for your members. You're a real example to the rest of the country. I know I'm a lot older than you in being. I'm learning from you every day. Continue what you're doing, buddy. And thanks for coming and joining us today.
Thank you.
Awesome work. Now, I know Louise has a copy of your books right next to her. She can probably hold it up. Greg, just give us 30 seconds on the book that you've just brilliantly wrote.
So we approached Ivan about our core value and our philosophy, Give Us Gain. We've broken it down into 7 principles. And the reason we broke it down is because we recognized that we were losing really good people from BNI because they were exhausted. And the 7 principles allows you to sustainably embrace Give Us Gain and turn it into infinite giving in all aspects of your life. It's got amazing reviews. It's got some wonderful stories in there, none of which written by me, obviously, because I don't like a story. And here's a good thing. It's been described as a business page turner. It's a couple of hours read, and it's available on Kindle and Amazon. And I'd love you guys I'd love to hear what you think about it. Thank you.
Perfect. We're going to get the link. Actually, I'm going to send the link out in an email tomorrow to all members, or we'll sort something out that way. Absolutely fine, and we'll get the link off you, Greg. I just want to say, last thing of all, can we please unmute ourselves? Give a round of applause. Last one for Greg for coming to see us today for a brilliant presentation. Awesome.
Brilliant. Well done.
Thank you, Greg.
Well done, thank you.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
Well
done, lovely.